Council for the year. Apologies, I think we're all here today. Are there any declarations of interest this morning? Not aware of any. Public forums, petitions, deputations, also not aware of any. Move to item 5, which is the confirmation of the minutes of Council meeting on the 16th of December.
I'll move.
Moved by Lloyd, seconded by Bonnie. All in favour will say aye.
Aye.
Move to item 6, which is the notification of extraordinary and urgent business, supplementary reports or other. We do have a supplementary report today, which is the item come here for nature funding. Yeah. Wild, it makes me wild, but anyway, that will come up at the end of the agenda. You'll be furnished with it, and it's not supplementary report because it's reasonably urgent. We get it underway.
You want to set that into the meeting agenda, Jim?
Well, actually,
I'll move that.
by Linda. Aye. Do we have any questions this morning? I have not been made aware of any. So we'll move to Chairman and Councillors' reports. Being the start of the year, I don't actually have a report this morning. We are only just starting our meeting schedule. Does anybody else have any reports at this stage of it? If not, we will move to item 9, staff report, and the first item up is item 1, the Chief Executive's report. Rob, would you like to comment on your report?
Yeah, look, I'm happy to take the report as read and to take any questions. Just note that we, in the last year, the intensive grazing reported back, and we are waiting on the Minister's views on the recommendations of that report. We also, there's an opportunity to update on some of the work we're doing locally, especially in tomato anti-wire, and that landed well. As I said, we're waiting a formal response to the intensive grazing group's recommendations. I'm happy to take any questions.
Peter.
Thanks, Mr. Chairman. I just want to make a few comments on draft climate change action plan. Very pleasing to read that, Rob, and especially words such as communities are empowered. And I think it's quite a time that we start to have a discussion with the community around the science and what a transition would look like to low carbon as we move forward. So well done with that. Look forward for that draft to be developed.
So thanks, Peter. We will be discussing that in item 3. We'll be discussing that in item 3, so we'll have an opportunity there to discuss that item further.
Jeremy.
Just in regards to under other items of interest in the consents, talk about regular consultants for discussion. The sector professionals, does that include industry representatives? Or is it just a consultant?
Yeah, look, I'm
because there's obviously a lot of people that won't use consultants.
Yeah, I understand it is a consultant's forum, so
yeah,
I can get that detail and talk to you about it.
Linda.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just a question about the consents in general section. I'm pleased that Aurora's getting an opportunity to do some professional development. That's great, but where does that leave us as far as pressures on our consents team?
So we've got an acting consent manager, Bruce Halligan, who's a very experienced manager, and I'm very comfortable with him in the acting role.
Does that leave us unprecedented?
No, it's all being replaced subsequent. Yeah. So it's a secondment going on, so it can be in the salary costs.
Thank you.
Looking just on that, I think it's a great initiative, Rob, that we're talking to other councils but working closer together. I think this secondment will actually enhance those opportunities going forward, so that seems to be a very good result.
This takes it a step further than sharing information. This is actually, how do we actively work with organisations such as ECAN, and where is it appropriate to actually put resources in all of those things. So I'm seeing it as very positive.
Lloyd?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Two comments. One is it possible for Catchment to come and talk to us about the gravel that's mentioned in your report and some of the issues they're dealing with and facing with, so we understand. I understand that's the biggest flood they've ever had up there, and some of the gravel movement was quite extreme. So it would be good to get a better understanding of some of the things he's dealing with, and maybe we can help guide or encourage him to look at some of the alternatives, whether it's a wider consenting regime or a global consent or some other matter that may help in that area. There's been phone calls to me about it, but I wanted to make sure that we're all in line. That's why I got Paddy involved. And the second part is, with the staff changes we've had, is it time to have an update of the people and responsibilities so we know who to direct some of the conversations to directly from the ROPO.
Yeah, so we've circulated emails with the new staff and the responsibilities. I'm happy to do more than that if you so wish. We'll do that again. And we're more than happy to get Paddy, but also some of the other staff from the organisation involved in gravel to talk to council at a workshop. We're doing something internally, as I've touched on before, and noting this is an ongoing issue. How do we best manage gravel in the region? So yes, I'm really happy to get
And look, on that issue, I've also had a number of calls. We've had a couple of record floods in some areas, and unless people call and let our staff know, because they are still well behind trying to deal with the last floods, if we don't know, we can't fix it. So working together, I think is ideal. And every time we're in Wellington, the Minister talks to us about sediment, and we know in Southland that bank erosion is a considerable contributor to that. So I'm hopeful the time is right to work with all the interested parties to minor work that we may be able to make that a smoother process.
And Chair, just to add to that, just to reinforce, this has been an important issue for the Catchment team in the last month or so. We've been, I think there's 150 odd inquiries. We're working with a number of different farmers mainly in this, so our staff are actively engaging in those farmers and looking at how best to manage gravel in those particular area. So that's a real focus for them, and it's a development. So yeah, we've got a real emphasis on working with those farmers as to how best to manage gravel in those individual areas of the rivers. We'll also be talking to the committee chairs and also the laser committees about this in the next month or so.
Any further questions for Rob on his report? If not, would somebody like to move the recommendation? Moved by Bonnie, seconded by Jeremy. All in favour will say aye. Aye. Right, we'll move to item 2, which is the confirmation of objectives for the proposed water and land. Good morning. Would you like to speak to the item?
Yes, so today what we are seeking is for the approval of the objectives of the proposed Southland Water and Land Plan. It's a really great step in the process. It's been a long process, so it's really exciting to finally get decisions from the court. So Judge Borthwick issued her decisions on the objectives late last year. So the next step in the process is to make these objectives operative, which will provide a greater level of certainty for plan users and for staff internally. We need to be clear that it is only the objectives that can be made operative. The policies, even though they were part of the first lot of Environment Court hearings, have not undergone a Section 32 AA evaluation, so they're not part of this approval. And we can include a statement to that effect in the plan as we make this operative. We're also going to correct some of the minor errors. Some issues with cross-referencing in the plan can be made at the same time while we're making these amendments. Those minor corrections are purely for council to note because Lucy Hicks has the delegated authority to approve those amendments. So our intention is to notify on the 20th of February, which would mean a public notice in the Southland Times on a Saturday, which is traditionally the way the plans have been noted as operative, which would mean an operative date of the 1st of March. With the objectives of this plan becoming operative, it means that the objectives of the regional water plan are still in effect but have less weight. So we will still have two lots of operative objectives with the regional water plan and the water and land plan, but more weight will be given to the water and land plan objectives. And it will only be once the water and land plan is made operative in its entirety that the water and land plan will be inoperative. We will also be inserting the policies that are required under the National Policy Statement for Freshwater Management. These include 3 policies, one relating to rivers, inland wetlands and fish passage. These will be written into the plan. Even though they're in the National Policy Statement, they are still in effect, but by actually putting them into the plan, it is providing that extra certainty to plan users that they're applicable. I'm happy to take questions if there are any.
I've got Lloyd, Ellen and Derek. Lloyd.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just clarification, I can't see it. I had a funny feeling these were like draft objectives, so we were approving them, but they could, depending on how the rules and that go, it could actually be, they may have to go back to make sure that they're in balance. So can you just clarify for me? I sort of got the impression that this was where the court was at and needed to give guidance, and there was some other stuff that needed to happen, but these weren't quite locked and loaded yet, but they're close. Is that?
So we sought some legal advice on whether the objectives were able to be made operative, and the advice that we received was that yes, they can be, and to avoid any potential issues in the future of delaying making the objectives operative, it was best to do it as soon as possible. And with the NPS policies being included, the advice was that we could haul it all together and get it done in one amendment.
I think just following on from that, on page 27, all parties had 15 working days to appeal the decision, and there was no appeals, so I think that's why it's moved to the next stage.
Thank you.
Alan.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. So just understanding with the objectives now in place, that won't have any effect on the topic B mediation. So that the ability to freely mediate on the topic B points, that will there be any impact on having locked in those mediation, those objective points?
For topic B, it would provide more certainty for the people involved in those appeals. Obviously, we need to give effect to those objectives, and they have been decided. It won't be a case of the objectives being able to be renegotiated. It provides much more certainty for us as a council and for the other appellants involved.
And so then just finally understanding how we're putting in those 3 policies, are they largely written for us and little ability to wordsmith any of them? Is it more like a...
They are largely written for us. The MPs did allow for some wordsmithing, but the intention needs to be what's guided in the MPs.
And will they be contentious at all?
they're compulsory policies, so all we need to do is insert them.
I've got Eric, Neville, then myself.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just a point of clarification, fourth bullet point on page 27, objective 9A and 9, says will be remerged, and I'm struggling to understand what remerged means. I asked Professor Google and he asked me to check my spelling.
Okay, so I should have asked Professor Google and just use merged rather than remerged.
That makes more sense, thank you for that. Small point, but it has me confused.
Neville.
Yeah, just a slightly technical question about notification. I don't think we're going to advertise it in the newspaper. Given that the sale of newspapers has dropped dramatically over the last few years, is that still just the legal requirement that we need put in a newspaper that makes it all legal and proper? Or is there no other requirements to advertise?
The RMA states that it needs to be publicly notified, and council traditionally has used the Southland Times in the Saturday paper. Comms will put out an information, a press release stating that the plan will be made operative in 5 working days from the date that we notify. We also need to, plans need to go to all of the libraries, and we need to notify the TAs and Ministry of Environment and iwi as well. They will all be served copies of that update.
I suppose, just following on that, everything's done online these days, so will it be on our website as a public?
Yes.
Lloyd, did you have?
Yeah, I just got to follow on from Councillor Cook. I just wonder whether we use social media, in other words, our Facebook page. Is it not appropriate but we do that as a matter of courtesy? And also the Otago Daily is actually very widespread down here, probably more so. I think maybe as society's changed, we may need to change as well. And I just wonder whether we should not hit those as a matter of being polite to the public, because those 3 things will hit most people as quickly as we can. If we did one, I think it would be missed.
Yes, I'm not aware of what the comms plan is for the notification, but that's
Comms is indicating, would you like to comment?
Through you, Mr. Chair, thank you. Yeah, all those suggestions have been taken on board. We'll use all the channels we have available to us to share the message.
So it's actually good to see that the NPS, which we must give effect to, can be quite simply done. It's good to see that. And just, Alan was commenting earlier, the new objectives are stronger, and I'm sure that will have some implication on the policies and rules going forward, because they will have to give effect to the objectives that have been ratified. So I guess we'll look forward to going through that process later this year and hopefully finally seeing our plan come out the other side. So thanks for the work that's gone into that. Any further questions on this item before I ask somebody to move the recommendation? Doesn't appear to be. Would somebody like to move the 2 recommendations?
Mr. Chair, I'll make the recommendations.
Moved by Alan.
But I'm just wondering for clarification, should we approve 1 and 2, because that's actually agreed, and 3 and 4 is actually for noting? Should we do that separately, or are you happy to do the whole 4 together?
I'm happy to do it either way, as long as we do something.
As a keg, no.
Yeah. There's one.
Sorry, Mr. Chair, if we could, with the recommendation number 2, if we could just insert the 20th of February as the date for public notification.
Second. So on that note, the mover is happy to do the comprehensive. Did I have a second of that?
Sorry,
comment?
that was
Sorry, that date should be the 1st of March.
first from the operative date, not the notification date.
1st of March.
First of the 3rd, 2021. Okay, we've clarified that. Did we have a second for the motion? Lyndall? Any further discussion? I will put the motion. All in favour will say aye.
Aye.
You. Right, we'll move to item 3, Environment Southland's Climate Action Plan. Well, Anastasia, would you like to speak to the item, or?
So I guess it's just speaking on behalf of the working group, which has really consistently been Robert and Nicole. We're just seeking acknowledgement and ratification of the climate action plan, which is a collation of the current work that's going on within council. So keeping you updated with what's up.
Right. So that, Eric.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yes, we have presented this in a non-prejudicial way to give you councillors a view of where we were at before, so you have seen this before. My only comment would be that it's been quite a big piece of work, and because of COVID, it got slightly more delayed than we anticipated. The other comment would make that ratifying this won't set anything in stone. In my understanding is that as this issue develops, we might want to look and modify or add to as well. But this is a point in time, an action plan which came out of our let's have a positive this process about how we move at this time. So as I say, councillors have seen it. There hasn't been a great deal of negative comment. I'm actually happy to move the resolutions.
Thank you. Probably should have a quick, so we've got a mover, but we will take Lloyd Esley then Robert.
Just had a comment that that's about all that you can do, like without impinging too much on economic development, and then perhaps a focus more on mitigation rather than trying to prevent climate change, which is an international issue. And apart from, a small gesture here and there, there's not a lot you can do. And I think the focus should be on mitigation of the inevitable rather than attempting to reverse climate change.
Got Robert, Lloyd, then myself.
Thanks, Mr. Chairman. I have to disagree with Councillor Esla's view of the situation. However, my point was I was wanting to second Eric's motion. Yeah, that's
That's excellent. We have Robert. We'll take Lyndall, then Lloyd, then myself.
Thank you. The important point for me, I think, is the next steps, and I'm looking forward to the workshop that we'll be involved with. And as part of that, I wonder if my fellow councillors have looked to the value. I don't know, and I'd be interested in advice of the symposium, the LGNZ symposium on the 26th of February. I wonder if there's any value in sending somebody to that. Admittedly, it might be after that workshop, but it still would inform the discussion. But I'm not sure whether the program for that is as valuable as it could be or not. Open to asking.
Well, I guess let's look at the program. We can make a decision on that later in the meeting or whatever. I haven't actually seen it. Is there a Zoom component or with it or not? But
Not obviously,
okay,
but
yeah.
Rob might know more.
Look, I haven't seen the program. We can certainly have a look at the program. It's kind of your decision as to whether it's sensible.
I didn't see any web sort of version or ability to connect, and I thought that was probably an oversight or a surprising oversight that they hadn't made it available.
And I guess, look, the timing of this item is actually very apt, and like government, I guess we've actually looked at our own responses in the initial response, but we have the Commission for Climate Change bringing out their blueprint next week. So the scheduled workshop for the 10th is timely, because we will be able to look at the national direction, make some comments on that we can feed into the system, and I think that's highly appropriate. Having national direction is always better than ad hoc, but there may be more going forward regional flavour that we need to put onto it. Lloyd, you've been waiting patiently.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm just not sure of the heading in column 3. It doesn't make sense to me, and I'm just wondering whether we could wordsmith that a bit better.
Of the plan itself.
Opportunity make a living climate aware. I'm not too sure whether that's correct.
Where is that, Lloyd?
Well, just,
Consideration to climate are a factor in opportunities to make a living.
something like that. Well, I wonder whether it was living communities climate aware, but I think we need to just look at that.
Consideration to climate.
I see our authors writing furiously.
Yeah, I just
Comfortable with
feel
that,
they
or-
might have been pulled out of some strategic plan somewhere, word for word, so
You're saying it wasn't our work?
Through you, Mr. Chair, we'll revisit that at the workshop.
Thank you.
Peter has been waiting patiently.
Yeah, just to reiterate what I said prematurely at the start around congratulations on this, and I can see, or my view is it's heading towards us establishing a fully standalone committee that's resourced out of this council. But I think once we get into it, we'll probably find that this is bigger than us in this room, that we have to bring others in too, so other councils into to this group, start making a real difference. So, well done.
We've had a mover and a seconder. The movers and seconders are happy that the item that was raised will be addressed at the workshop.
Yes. Yep.
On that note, I will put the recommendation. All in favour will say aye.
Aye.
Against, no. Carried. Unanimous. Okay. Right, we'll move to item 4, which is the Local Government New Zealand Zone 5 and 6 meeting. Page seems to have disappeared on me at the moment. Okay, so we've been advised that the Zone 5 and 6 meeting will be held in Wanaka on the 15th and 16th of March. And we're asked to consider and provide direction on the appointment of delegates. I note that this is the follow-on from the meeting that was going to be held in Ashburton last year and was cancelled. I think it'd be good to have, and it's reasonably handy, so it would be good to have some presence there. Can I have some indication of interest?
I'd be interested in going to that, Chairman.
So we have Neville.
Jim, could I ask a question along the line of Alan's question? Are they providing opportunities to zoom into these meetings?
I am not 100% sure. That may well be a possibility I know there was a limited Zoom thing at one of the ones just before COVID. But we'll look into that, because that may be the ability for more people to actually take part. Yeah, that's right. Yeah. I'm looking at my own schedule. I'm a maybe, but I think it's supposed to be in May that morning. We haven't seen a program that I'm aware of yet. I'm not sure.
No, not yet. We're waiting. They said that I had hoped it would be here in time for the meeting, but it hasn't arrived yet. So.
And Lyndall, you're possible?
I'll possibly attend if you, it would depend on the program actually, if it's worth my going.
Any further bids? No, but we'll certainly look into that Zoom thing, because that could be a possibility for others to look in. I suspect that the focus will be very much on Three Waters, which is very topical with the territorials at the moment. But at this stage, we actually haven't got a program to know exactly what is on. So perhaps, well, tentatively we'll put us in for 3. I need to look at the schedule to see whether I can actually make that or not. But, so would somebody like to move?
I'll move that, the recommendation.
Recommendation and the names of
Councillor Cook, Lowe and possibly yourself.
Thank you for that. Seconded. All in favour say aye. Aye. We'll move to item 5, which is the Councillors' meeting schedule, January 2021 to March 2021.
I have a couple of additional meetings to add to what's been circulated. On the 29th of January, we have a Waituna River Liaison Committee meeting at the Piri property at 2 o'clock, which I've listed Councillors McCallum and McLeod attending. And I understand Councillor MacDonald is also attending Waitangi Day celebrations, and I'm aware of Chairman Horrell, not aware of anybody else. So I don't know who got invitations and who didn't.
All of us must be invited.
I have replied directly.
When it's local, it's actually quite good to have a bit of a presence there, so I'm pleased to see we have a few that are indicating they will attend.
Partners allowed or expected or not expected to attend?
I think so, like the official part maybe not. I know for last year at Cara, my wife wasn't part of the official thing, but she came with me and sort of, was there sort of thing. But I guess for catering, they probably need to know the exact numbers. So Jan might be aware of what the situation is there.
No, I'm not, and I understand Councillor MacDonald has asked the same question, and we're still awaiting a response. So the invitation indicated a name, so I just took it as that, but it doesn't say councillor and partner, but I don't know. When I do know, I'll let you know.
Clarify. Yep. Lloyd.
And also need to add in the Balanced Farm Environment Award Supreme Winner Field Day, which is on at Riverton on the 18th of February at 1:30. I know that it clashes with the Wire Liaison Committee meeting, but there might be people interested in attending.
Is that Thriving Southland breakfast on there as well, that they've been inviting?
I haven't seen that one, sorry.
It would be good to have
a Thriving Southland breakfast.
Yeah.
Thriving Southland event, is that the one in Towtown?
No, there's a breakfast, it's from 7 till 9 at the Ascot.
That's on the, it's on a very busy day. I think it's the 16th of March.
I said I was going to attend.
Well, just before I go to Bonnie, it would be good to have a presence at the Balance Awards, because we do sponsor an award there, and often it does clash with something going on, but we've got people that are doing great things environmentally, and it's always good. They always like to see somebody there if we can get there. So I'd commend anybody who can actually work that into their diary to actually perhaps let Jan know. Bonnie, you were indicating?
Yeah, I have for a few of us, or maybe somebody else, for Friday the 5th, the combined Southland Te Raukatai hui. It's 2 p.m. I can forward the invite to you.
Oh no, I do know about that.
So that's the combined Otago South and Raukatai the day before the Waitangi Day celebrations. Yes, I'm sure that'll be fine if we note you down, yes.
16th of February, that Thriving Southland breakfast.
Lloyd.
Yeah, 3 things, Mr. Chairman. One is I said no to the Waitangi, but I'm a possibility now because my timetable's changed a little bit, so I might be going to that. And the second thing is the leave of absence, the dates are incorrect. It's actually the 8th to the 21st, not the 8th to the 12th.
That hasn't fallen in lodge, that's just you telling me, so I'll put it here to help us remember. So if we could approve a leave of absence request today for Councillor McCallum, that would be great.
David.
Yeah, just a request for leave of absence from the 11th to the 18th of February.
one as well, from the 23rd to the 2nd of May, of 23rd April to the 2nd of May.
Any further requests? If not, I think Neville was moving the.
I'll move we approve the leaves of absence that have been applied for, Chairman.
Second for that. Lyndall, all in favour will say aye. Move to item 7, the common seal.
Have we done 6?
You move?
No, I said, have we done 6?
Oh, 6.
It's on page 47.
Oh, I've jumped a page. Sorry, you're well done. We will do item 6, which is reporting of expenditure and delegated authority. Jan, would you like to comment on the item?
We've had an expenditure payment made of $1,113,930.92, and it's in relation to purchase of chemical for the Mid-Dome Wilding Trees Charitable Trust. It's all been, councillors previously approved the contract, but the delegated authority is for the chief executive and a general manager that they may only spend up to $300,000. They can approve this payment, but according to our delegations manual, we must report it to the next immediate meeting, and this is the meeting that it's been reported to.
We note the payment, Chairman, and approve of that. I saw them actually doing the spraying a couple of weeks ago up there.
Moved by Neville, do you want to make
Well, I've got a question, and I'm not wanting to cast aspersions upon anybody, but I'm not actually sure how this number comes about. I am a small-time operator with an issue with broom and old man's beard. $10,000 is a big amount for me to spend in a year, but by tendering both the variety of chemical and the cost, there can be significant savings in the order of 30%, and I'm just not sure how this big number came about and how it kind of all operates, really. I'm not, as I say, wanting to cast aspersions, but this is a big number, and I'm not sure just business practice in terms of how it was arrived at.
As far as I understand, they do because they're a big player. There is
Well, that's fine, but
and it is the funding they've got. This is for quite a big area. It is actually quite a win for us. The funding that came through for the wildings. But good question. And the cocktail, I think, is not just a straightforward off the shelf either from memory.
Okay. Chair, we can get some more detail from Ellie, who's our manager, who's sitting at the back there. But yeah, this has gone through the appropriate channels, and we've got a contract let to manage this area. So yeah, I'm very comfortable with the amount, noting it's a big figure, and we're really pleased to get government funding to assist us with this.
Okay.
But is there anything, would you like Ellie to just explain a wee bit more?
Well, I would like to just understand how it works. I'm happy to second it. I'm not wanting to stall it. But it's a significant expenditure. So.
Over to you.
So through you, Mr. Chair. So all of our chemical purchase is worked out with MPI and through the National Wilding Conifer Programme. And we are purchasing for the whole, the programme purchases a lot for the whole country. So we negotiate tenders on lots and lots of herbicide on every management unit across the country, and then we get our proportion of it, what we need for our programme. So we are getting a really good deal because we're actually buying in significant bulk across the whole country and then getting it. And we did over 700 hectares of aerial boom spraying, so it is expensive because it is a huge amount. But
yeah. I know it's an expensive.
Yeah. But yeah, so it is all tendered nationally, and it's all we try and get the best deal possible directly from the suppliers.
I'm very happy to second it, but the question had to be asked.
Robert, you have a question?
Yeah, thanks, Mr. Chairman. Just with regard to your comment about the cocktail, and I presume you're referring to the chemicals, which would be an arbicide, would that be right? A tree killer? Is that what it's called?
Yes, so it's been specifically designed for wilding conifers, and I can't off the top of my head tell you exactly the different things that are in that mix, but I can get that information.
I'd be interested in that, but my question is, does ES do any follow-up monitoring of the effect on the environment of that arbicide once the tree is killed? I presume it's not instantly biodegradable, there'll be some residual spray, and do we look at that? Because I mean there are waterways in the area where those trees are being killed.
We're taking samples from Tank Creek at the moment, That's the only creek that comes off where people are taking a direct domestic take from, so they've been disconnected from the waterway and they've been given tank water, so they've got clean water, and we're taking samples from that. I'm not sure about other monitoring in terms of residual effects. I think that's all been done at a national level through Scion and through the Wild and Conquer programme, but again, I can find out more.
I wonder if you would, please, I'd be very interested to know. Thank you.
Peter?
Mr. Chairman, I was just wondering, do we store the chemicals or do we uplift them when needed? Because it's quite a significant amount, so.
Yep, so I believe they've been staying at the supplier in Mosburn. They then get transported directly up to site. Up at site, they've got a couple of big chemical sheds with full bunding, and then they've got all of the big chemical containers all bundled as well. So it's really clear, careful management so that there's only a certain amount on site every day and it's all bundled and properly managed.
If there's no further questions,
Well, I was going to comment on
okay, you go.
Yep. Comment about monitoring. And about 10 years ago, when they were using Reglane, there was a significant issue occurred then in people's gardens. Half the cabbages between Five Rivers and Kingston died, and a few other plants. And yeah, well, I am aware that there is a real consciousness now to apply best practice to all of the chemicals. I don't know whether that answers your question, but yeah.
Just in reference to that, that was a result of overspray, wasn't it? Aerial landing on people's crop, but I'm thinking about once it enters the groundwater. But thank you for that.
I'm sure we can get that information for you. The item's been moved and seconded. I'll put the motion. All in favour will say aye.
Aye.
We'll move to item 7, which is the common seal. Some straightforward.
I'll move.
Moved by Eric, seconded by Neil. Any discussion? No discussion. I'll put the motion. All in favour will say aye. Aye. We will now move to the supplementary reports. Nellie, would you like to comment on the report?
Good morning, everyone. I just take it as read that the report, as most people have seen the contents of the report, it was basically to provide council with an update that we've been successful in getting yet more jobs for nature funding. This is through the Department of Conservation's Kamahi for Nature, and it's going to make a significant difference to our progressive containment weed control programme of barberry and cotoneaster around Te Anau. We're in the final stages of signing the contract at the moment, so hoping to have everything happening and on the ground by the end of the month, or end of next month, because we're now in January. Yeah.
Robert.
Thanks, Ali. I suppose, well, on behalf of the Riverton History Society, this question comes, I guess, through me. We have a wetland on the edge of town with a Barbary broom gorse issue. Is it worth them, that society, approaching Environment Southland to ask for funding under that fund?
Probably not under that fund, but under definite funding streams, they should definitely come and talk to me.
Right. Thank you.
Helen.
Yeah, thanks, Mr. Chair. So just in regard to the seasonal jobs side of it, how are we seeing that side of it? Are we acknowledging, or we are aware that there's people looking for work? What is the status of those that might be willing to take up this offer of work or part-time work?
So we're working really closely with MSD, and we're also part of the fund is to try and keep people that are underemployed in tourism in their original job. So if they're a guide, they still get to do guiding, and we're supplementing this so they actually get a living income from it. So we're also working with all of the companies, or it's about 11 companies that have expressed interest in Te Anau to be involved. So we will contract them to do the work. They will do their normal jobs whenever there's people around and whether they've got tourism operations happening. And then on quiet days, off days, end of the season, then they'll do the weed work for us.
So how do we ensure that that actually happens, that they are, what's the monitoring or the oversight of that process?
So we've been up there and done pre-work audits, so we know what the current situation with weeds is like now. We've got transects in through the blocks, and we'll go back and check that the work is being done. They'll also be carrying GPSs to show where they've been worked on at any day. And they'll be doing reporting of how many hours have been spent in every block and every day that they've worked as well.
I've got Lloyd Esler, then myself.
Mr. Chairman, I note that the funding is for 2 years. I'm just wondering if there's an exit plan for that, because often with weed or pest control, you take the pressure off and then it comes back pretty much to what it was before. So is this just a temporary sort of stopgap, or is there going to be a long-term benefit from that once the weed control is not happening?
We believe there will be long-term benefit. So they're relatively short-lived seeds for those two species. So by getting the mature ones out now with the tourism industry, then we can use our normal expenditure to keep on top of it. So we always spend about 25,000 up there a year, and we control this area. We're hoping that we'll be able to control a much bigger area once this work has been happened. So it will really get us ahead of our normal programme.
No, this is, it's a great program and a bit of a win-win. We know that the tourism industry is bleeding, and that flexibility hopefully is going to allow people to remain in the area, remain in the industry as it recovers. So, but we're also getting some jobs for nature done that is also a win, so well done. Peter?
I'm just sorry, just at the last moment, but there has to be some really good oversight, because people say weed spraying is a pretty low-skilled job, but I can assure you it's not. There's all the effort and time to get to the area and get the work done. That spraying part is really important at the final end, so that oversight is crucial.
So I should have also said that we will have somebody, one of the roles will be here at Environment Southland. Well, they will work for Environment Southland, but be based in Tiana to provide daily on-site work. And there's no spraying, at least to start with, because there's no one who's got the right qualifications, because they're tourist operators. So that'll be all cut and pasting, so it should be really clear, trees, and they'll get really good training on how to do it, how low to the ground, when to put the herbicide.
And I think that very point when the government rolled out some of these things, and then they thought, whoops, we're going to have some accountability. It has taken a little bit longer, but I'm quite sure that is part of these programs, that it's not just money thrown out there that's going to be wasted. There is that accountability factor that's being built into that.
Chair, can I just add, it's probably useful to say that there's a Southern Alliance of Otago that covers Otago and Southland. They've allocated $25 million, is that about the right figure, to that area. And we're working with DOC and iwi in terms of how that money's allocated. So proposals come up, and Ali's been part of that group. It's allocating money. So a significant amount of money for the two regions, and I guess our key, we're really focused on making sure Southland gets its 12.5 million.
Some of these things have been in the too hard basket that we haven't been able to afford to do, so it's great that this funding is available, and as Rob says, let's make sure we leverage as much as we can.
I'm happy to move, Mr. Chairman.
Moved by Lloyd, seconder for recommendation, Alan. Any further comment? I will put the motion. All in favour would say aye.
Aye.
And unless I'm mistaken, I think that will conclude the meeting today. There's no public excluded, is there? No. Meeting closed. Thank you for your contribution.